Hello everyone. Back again with film recaps. In this video, I'm going to recap one of the horror mystery films from 2009, titled The Haunting in Connecticut. Before we get to the storyline, I'd like to wish everyone a happy and great day. Without further ado, let's get straight to the storyline. The movie begins with a series of death photographs, a practice which was prevalent centuries ago. We also see glimpses of someone cutting through human flesh and spilling a lot of blood. The scene then cuts to the present day, where a woman named Sarah Campbell is being interviewed. The interviewer asks Sarah why all this happened, and she begins recounting her story. We are then taken to the past, to June 19, 1987. Sarah and her terminally ill son, Matt, are heading home in their car after a routine checkup at the hospital. She keeps praying to God that his cancer treatment will work. Sadly, Matt is so fragile that he has to stop multiple times throughout the long journey to vomit. When they reach home, Sarah informs her husband Peter about Matt's vomiting episodes, expressing that she is tired of making him suffer. Turns out the drive to the hospital from their home is taking 8 hours when Matt is continuously vomiting, and she suggests that they move closer to the city. Peter is a bit skeptical about it, as they are struggling on finances lately. He fears that they cannot afford the rent in Connecticut, but upon seeing his sick son and tired wife, he eventually agrees. During the next trip to the hospital, the doctor informs Sarah that the treatment is going to be very grueling, but Matt is perfectly eligible for the treatment, so it is the best chance they have. As the son is undergoing treatment, Sarah goes on a house hunt. She checks numerous places, but they are either too expensive or not good enough. Later, she comes across a large house, where the owner is hammering in the rental sign, so she asks about the price, and the frustrated man offers her the first month free if she moves in immediately. He shows her around the large house, and Sarah absolutely loves the place, but she's also intrigued at why the rent is so cheap, and the man reveals that the house has a bit of a history. Sarah then informs her husband that she found a very nice house, but turned it down because it didn't feel right. When Matt's treatment is over, the mother-son duo heads home. But the poor boy is left in so much pain that he can barely sit straight. Seeing his condition, Sarah turns around and heads straight to the house for rent. She has decided to rent it, as she can no longer see Matt suffer the lengthy driving journeys. Later, Matt tries to watch the television, but he quickly gets bored and turns it off, and we see a shadowy figure in the distance. At midnight, Matt suddenly wakes up from his sleep. He hears strange noises coming from upstairs, but he dismisses it as his imagination. He then goes to the bathroom and washes his face to freshen up. But even then, the noise persists. This finally piques his curiosity and he decides to investigate. Matt slowly heads to the basement, where he finds a creepy-looking glass door. And as he looks into it, Matt wakes up on his bed, dismissing it as a nightmare. The mother brings her son into the kitchen, where she tells him he may choose his room before the rest of the family arrives. As she is preparing the rooms, she finds several death photographs hidden in the old furniture of the house. This creeps her out, so she promptly discards them into the trash. Meanwhile, Matt looks around the large house, and eventually chooses the basement as his room. He explains that the place has an attached bathroom, so no one can hear him puke down here. There is also a glass door in the basement that leads to another room, but currently it's locked. Soon after, Peter arrives with the rest of the family. It includes Matt's younger brother, Billy, and cousins Wendy and Mary. Wendy is shown to a room with a massive closet. And as they open the closet door, that evening, Matt is in his basement, trying to figure out what is there on the other side of the glass door. His mom is cleaning the room with a wet mop, but Matt suddenly sees blood on the floor. But when he checks again, he realizes that it's just water. Later on, Matt takes the plates out from the shelf and puts them on the table. But when he grabs the spoons, the plates are not there anymore and are now back on the shelf. He asks his mom if she did it, but she denies it. Matt then finds the plates missing and they fall to the ground behind him. Sarah apologizes for making him work, but Matt tells her that he didn't drop it. Worried, she asks if he started seeing things, but he tells her everything is fine. Turns out the doctor has told them that if he starts hallucinating, he'll be deemed unsuitable for the treatment. Later at night, Matt wakes up to strange noises coming from behind the glass door. He sees a bearded man and a boy inside the room. The man is carving symbols and letters on a dead body, as the boy carefully watches. He then grabs a sharp tool and cuts off the corpse's eyelid, right when Matt wakes up in his bed. Puzzled by the strange occurrences, he gets up and walks to the mysterious door. He tries to hold the doorknob, but his hand suddenly starts burning, and the burn leaves a massive scar on his palm. Matt hides the fact that he's having auditory and visual hallucinations, so he is approved for stage 2 of the treatment. After returning from the hospital, Sarah escorts Matt up to the door and goes back to retrieve the keys. Here the boy's hand then slides into the decomposing skin inside the wall. But the wall returns to its original state once he calls his mother. That night, Matt wakes up to the sound of the mysterious door opening. He gets up and slowly walks into the room. The next morning, Matt's brother Billy comes to the basement looking for him. He then finds him inside the inaccessible room, and Matt places his brother on a surgical table, and playfully rotates him. But while he does so, he suddenly gets visions of an empty coffin filled with sandbags. He rotates the table at a rapid pace, but fortunately, Matt snaps out of it and stops the table. Soon, Dad also arrives at the room, and gets shocked to see all the surgical equipment lying around. This makes him realize that the house was a funeral home, hence why its rent is so cheap. Later, Peter calls his wife out for hiding such a big secret, but she reasons that she had no other choice at that time. Plus, the place is perfectly well, so there's nothing to worry about. At the dinner table, Peter tells his family that although this house was used for funerals in the past, it is just a normal house now. He then asks everyone to hold hands so that they can pray, and strangely, Matt begins experiencing visions. He sees a boy named Jonah, with a bearded man, and a couple of other people. They are currently sitting across a table, holding hands. Jonah is convulsing vigorously throughout the ordeal, and it seems they are performing some sort of ritual. As all of this is happening, Matt seems visibly stressed. His family is worried about his condition, but Sarah explains that it's due to his treatment. The following day at the hospital, Matt meets a fellow patient, Nicholas, who turns out to be a reverend. Matt talks about the visions, but Nicholas tells him to keep it a secret, because if the hospital staff find out, they will remove him from the treatment. He also hands Matt his number, saying he can call him anytime if he wants to talk. In the next scene, the younger cousin Mary is playing with her dolls, and the withered hands with symbols cut into them can be seen behind her. Later, while playing hide and seek with his siblings, Matt starts to have visions. He sees the boy Jonah being scolded and forcefully pulled into the mortuary room by the bearded man. Matt follows them into the room filled with corpses, and the door behind him suddenly gets locked. He is frozen with fear when he sees the room is no longer empty. Then, one of the bodies is moving, and several dead bodies with carvings appear, and surround him. Fortunately, the family arrives just in time, and the mysterious figures also disappear, making them believe that Matt is hallucinating again. Later, Matt meets Reverend Nicholas and asks him about his visions. The latter gives him a short speech about the afterlife and encourages him to find out what the spirit wants. In the evening, as Matt tries to do some sit-ups, the burned figure suddenly shows up, as if it's trying to communicate. When the family returns home that night, they find a shirtless Matt is ripped at the wall with his fingers, and he placed a pile of furniture in the center of the room. The mother and husband take their son to the doctor, who says his odd behavior is unrelated to his illness or treatment. As a result, this strange behavior of his shocks everyone, and they finally begin to crack under the stress. One day, while the parents are away, the kids ask to play hide and seek with Wendy. She agrees and the two run to find their hiding spot. Billy gets inside the dumbwaiter, while Mary hides in the attic. Suddenly, the little boy notices the burnt figure behind him, and he anxiously tries to get out. The door seems to be stuck, and luckily, Wendy arrives at the scene. They then hear Mary screaming from the attic, and rush to the place, finding her foot stuck on the broken floorboard. Matt pulls her leg out, and then he looks through the hole. He finds photographs, and strange items hidden beneath the floorboard. In the next scene, The teenagers begin to inspect these items. Matt finds a box containing some weird things, but he doesn't know what they are. He then looks at the pictures, and gets taken aback to find the boy from his visions. In one of the photos, Jonah is emitting strange matter from his mouth. Matt subsequently reveals to Wendy that he has seen the boy before. He has been seeing him since the day he arrived at the house. Hearing this, Wendy realizes that the house is haunted, so she decides to find more about the house and its owners. At the local library, she eventually discovers that the funeral home was run by a man named Ramsey Aikman, the terrifying bearded person Matt always dreamed about. He used to conduct psychic research on his clients. Jonah was his assistant, but he was not just some ordinary boy, he was a medium, through which dead people could be contacted. So, Aikman used him to conduct regular seances, and people from all over the world came to contact their deceased relatives. Aikman also found a way to amplify the seances, through which he could make things appear, things like ectoplasm. Ectoplasm is a mysterious protoplasmic substance. It streams out of the body of the mediums through the mouths, ears, noses, eyes, and even the lower orifices. It is revealed that Aikman performed all his seances in this house. They were extremely popular and attracted a lot of influential researchers. But during one seance, he and all 4 sitters suddenly got killed. The cause could not be determined, while Jonah disappeared, never to be found again. 30 years after the incident, during the 1950s, when the state highway was expanded, it passed through the county's cemetery. The government dug the graves to relocate them to a different plot, but they found empty coffins filled with sandbags. Someone had stolen the bodies long ago, and Matt speculates that either Aikman or Jonah is responsible for all this. The two then invite Nicholas to take a look at the items. The Reverend is shocked by the discovery, and he reveals that the strange items in the box are human eyelids. He theorizes that Aikman was practicing necromancy, a form of magic, through control of the dead's body parts like their eyelids. He also enhanced Jonah's power through the same process, and theorizes that Aikman bound the spirit of the dead to amplify his seances, via rituals like desecrating their bodies. He then asks the teenagers to pray for the people who died in the house. But as soon as they hold each other's hands, Matt teleports into Jonah's world where he is performing the last seance. As Aikman watches, the boy starts shaking, and ultimately emits ectoplasm from his mouth. Suddenly, the ectoplasm seems to catch fire, burning everything. Sarah arrives at the exact same time and gets alarmed to find a stranger holding her son. Nicholas makes an effort to inform the mother about ghosts in the home, but she kicks him out of the house, and he manages to give her his card. That night, strange things start happening around the house. Wendy's room is flooded with bats, and she encounters the burnt figure, while Sarah sees a dead body with letters carved on him. Some time later, all the power outlets and equipment around the house suddenly generate sparks. The spirits of the dead also whisper in an eerie manner, sending the family into a state of panic. As a result, Sarah finally decides to call Reverend Nicholas for help, and he arrives at their home. Without wasting any time, he uses a holy magnet to find the remains of Jonah. Nicholas then ventures into the mortuary in the basement, and figures out that Jonah was trapped inside a furnace. As he reaches for his remains, the whole house wakes up. The doors and windows start to bang, and bats begin flying here and there. The spirit of Jonah also approaches Matt, who is crouching on bed with Mom, while Nicholas gets access to the furnace from the rear of the house. He pulls out the boy's remains, and collects them in a cloth. The Reverend struggles to walk as Jonah's spirit is resisting, but he eventually drags himself out of the house, which causes Jonah to disappear. Nicholas then leaves with the ashes, while Matt sees Jonah's spirit outside the basement window before he sleeps. That night, the family breathes a sigh of relief, as they think the danger has subsided. But down in the basement, Matt awakens to a horrific sight. Aikman's symbols have been carved across his body. The mom rushes down to see the horrific sight, and she rushes the poor son to the hospital right away. Elsewhere, as Nicholas drives back home, he sees Jonah on his back seat and freaks out. He almost crashes into another vehicle, but somehow manages to swerve. At this point, both Nicholas and Matt start to have simultaneous visions. They see Jonah in the seance where he is emitting ectoplasm, and after a flash of bright light, Everyone is burned except him. He gets up, and hears a barely alive Aikman warns him to get out of the house. Aikman is concerned that the demonic presence will get him next. Unfortunately, the spirits close all the doors and windows, trapping him inside. Jonah enters a chamber through the dumbwaiter, desperately seeking an escape. But he doesn't realize that he has actually entered the furnace, and the evil spirits lock the gate, and cremate him alive. As soon as the vision ends, Reverend Nicholas realizes that he made a big mistake. He calls the house to warn them that Jonah was not an evil spirit, but his call goes into voicemail. Nicholas says the souls who Aikman tormented by desecrating their bodies are still entrapped in the house, and are trying to harm the family. He also reveals that Jonah was actually trying to protect the family and free the tormented souls. But now that he has been removed from the house, the dead souls have been let loose. Nicholas then warns them to flee the house immediately. Wendy, who is in the bathroom, is attacked by the spirits, who try to suffocate her, but she manages to survive. At the hospital, a doctor reveals that Matt's cancer treatments have had no effect. He may actually die tonight, and it's only a miracle that he's still alive. Shattered, the parents go to meet their son, but learn that he has escaped from the hospital. At home, strong winds start blowing, and when Wendy goes out to retrieve the clothes, she notices Matt coming towards the house. He is carrying an axe, with a possessed look on his face. This sends Wendy panicking and she immediately closes the door, but Matt manages to break in using his weapon. He catches up to her in the front room, and he immediately strikes the wall, revealing a carved corpse hidden behind it. He then drags the kids and Wendy out of the house, and locks all the doors, and then barricades it with furniture. He continues to strike the walls with his axe, revealing more dusty corpses hidden by Aikman. They tumble into the room in large numbers, but our boy keeps on striking the walls, revealing more and more horrifying sights. After this, Matt pours Aikman's formaldehyde all over the bodies and the walls, and then he lights them on fire. He also throws the pictures and human eyelids into the flames. Soon, Matt finds himself surrounded by the spirits of the desecrated bodies. Realizing that he is going to die, he kneels before them and screams. Outside, his parents, Reverend Nicholas, and the emergency services have all arrived. Hearing his son's screams, Peter runs towards the front door, but he is stopped by the cops, while Sarah manages to sneak inside the house through the side door. Upon finding Matt unconscious on the ground, she drags him to a corner, and tries to wake him up. Finally, the spirits, who have finally been freed, start disappearing. The firefighters also break into the wall, and rescue the duo. The emergency crew attempts to resuscitate Matt, while Sarah frantically cries and prays. As he is about to die, he has a vision of himself in the graveyard, and he spots Jonah, who is no longer burnt. Matt is about to follow him, but he hears his mother's voice and suddenly comes to life. As he wakes up, Nicholas can see Jonah's spirit, who can finally leave Matt, while the family gathers around the poor son. The movie then cuts to the present. In her interview, Sarah reveals that Matt's cancer disappeared, and he is alive and well. The house was rebuilt and resold, with no further reported incidents of haunting. Okay guys, thanks for watching. See you again in the next video.